and generate some pretty awesome data as well. So that's just a brief little summary of what we're doing.
Awesome. And for all of our viewers out there, just to give you a little bit of a layout of what we're going to go through today, Matt and I. So I'm going to walk you all through a presentation that I've done before on sort of the top 3 lessons that have really helped me in marketing. And I used these when I was CEO at Geekdom at 80/20. I actually do this exercise before I write any of my books. I have 2 published. I have another one coming out in 2 weeks. And I always use the same principles before I actually put them out there. And I think they're helpful. And the only reason I know they work is that I didn't come up with them. So I'm just really distilling what I've learned from some really smart people. And so I'm going to share. So what's going to happen is at the end of the presentation, so it's 3 lessons, I'm going to probably cover 2 of them. And I'm going to do a workshop with Matt for his company. And I would love anybody attending to follow along if you want, because I think that they're very helpful exercises for anybody that is that needs sort of this marketing, just a little bit of extra firepower. And hopefully you can follow along and come to the same result. But Matt has graciously volunteered for me to workshop his company through these processes. So I'm going to share my screen here. And then also one last thing, if you have questions, please submit them. And my teammate, John Ryan Garcia, is going to sort of curate them and let us know at the end the questions that we can answer. So I want this to be pretty interactive, and I want this to be something very tangible that you can take with you. So I'm going to share my screen here and walk you through my first presentation. And Matt, just so you know, if anywhere in the presentation you want to stop me and ask questions, please feel free. Otherwise, you know, I'll plow through them.
Sounds good.
All right. Hang on one second here. I'm going to do this. I have 2 monitors, and so I always have to make sure it's not on the other screen. Okay. I think I should be good. All right, let's see here. Okay, here we go. All right, Matt, give me a thumbs up if you can see that.
I can see that. Perfect.
Awesome. All right. So these are just the first lessons that I've learned in marketing, and man, boy, am I glad I got them, because I feel like, especially when I became CEO of Geekdom, I really was struggling with sort of what we did and how we did it and how to differentiate, and it can all be very intimidating. And so I want to just walk you through these 3 lessons. The first one is owning your category, or what I call category marketing. The second one is finding your microscript, which is really telling your story in a very condensed format. And then the last one is storytelling. And it's funny, there is a lot of literature written on storytelling, and there's very little written out there about the first 2. And so I've been very, very privileged to work with some actual people that have done a lot of work in category and microscripting. And so I just want to share that knowledge with you because it was very helpful for me. So to dive into category marketing, and I'll just confess right now to the audience and to you, Matt, I am a huge geek when it comes to these next 2 topics. Like I love it. And it's because I feel like it's playing a game. And it's almost like doing an org chart where you start at the top and you drill all the way down until you have the one special thing that your company goes to. But basically, why do we do this? You know, I think that when people have a company and you have a problem that you're solving for people, the people buying want to know that you're the best at whatever it is that you do, right? Nobody willingly buys from the number 2 or the number 3, competitor out there. They want the best person. And even if that's in the lowest price category, but they want the best person in that category. And so the only number that matters is 1. This is a lesson from my mentor, Bill Schley, who you're going to hear me quote a lot in there. And the best example that I've found for this is the car. And what I love about this example is, Henry Ford sort of created the category of mass producing cars. And if you'd have told me back then, Lorenzo, create another car and compete with Henry Ford, I would have sort of crumbled under the pressure. Like, how do I compete with the guy who literally owns the category? Well, it turns out it was very simple. He used to say that I'll sell you a Ford Model T in any color as long as it's black. And so, like, the first separation of the category could have been if someone just said, hey, I do the same thing in a different color. And all of a sudden now, boom, you would have split the category into 2 categories, right? And I would have never thought about that, but that's really how category marketing works. And so if you look at the car category now in 2020, we have a gajillion categories. And one of the things that my mentor, Bill, taught me is that it's sort of like a tree, and you have these branches that are whole different divisions of the category. And so, for example, whoever first created the truck, right, created a whole new branch of the category tree into automobiles. And now you have several different types of trucks. The SUV was a completely different branch on the car tree. And now in the SUV category, you have, the super duper off-road, the cheapest, the most affordable. You have all these different ones. And so the question that you need to ask yourself is, what is the category that my company can own and be number one in? Because that is really the ultimate goal. And if you don't have a category, then I'm here to encourage you and say that it's time to create a new category and to crown yourself the king or queen of that category. So this is just my reminder. Graham once told me, he said, look, the whole point of category and marketing is to achieve extreme differentiation. Only when you achieve extreme differentiation does it make it easier for people to find you and for people to choose you. But the name of the game is differentiation. And I think that we live in an age where clever ads and entertainment becomes the goal for a lot of people. And I would submit that that is actually misguided. No one can, Bill Schley used to say, you could pay someone to come dress up in a purple bear costume and dance on the roof of your house, and the whole neighborhood will come watch, but it doesn't mean a single person will give you an offer on your house to buy your house, right? Like, page views is fine, but the goal is extreme differentiation so you can sell something. So
now, question on extreme differentiation. Is that like, because you mentioned it's not necessarily like advertising yourself to this different way. Is it more like creating a product that is like extreme in that differentiation, or is it like the business as the extreme differentiation, or is it both?
I think it's both. That's a great question. You can, once you have a difference that is different from everybody else, then you can deploy all of the crazy marketing and awesome advertising that we see out there. But most people try to jump to that without having a real difference. And I think that, to me, it is misguided. You need to start with what is the thing that really separates me, the real reason people want to buy, and then you deploy it out there. But to your point, to your question, it is about the product and the business. Sometimes you get lucky and it's the same for both of them. But if you have several products, you always want to differentiate it, but the company's differentiator can sort of umbrella all of them. And I'm going to go over that in the next example, right? So rack space. So, sorry. I actually have this slide. I have this slide backwards. Sorry. So this is the next slide. I think I moved them around. So I want to talk about when I started at Rackspace in 2001. Rackspace did something called managed hosting. And what was really, really awesome was, gosh, sorry, I got my slides wrong here, Matt. Hang on. Here it is. This is it. So when I started at Rackspace, we did something called managed hosting. And managed hosting, for all of you that don't know, is really just the plumbing of the internet. I mean, it was very technical. It was super hard for me to explain to my mom. And we hosted servers and built servers, and you probably know a lot more, Matt, because you actually have an application that's probably hosted somewhere. But most people didn't know what it was. Well, Rackspace very cleverly created the category of managed hosting. And so they basically said, this is what we do. And so all of a sudden, boom, they had named the category and they had claimed it. Well, what happened immediately was every other hosting provider said, we do that too. So immediately after creating the category, Rackspace had to differentiate itself again. And so what happened is that they said, you know what, we're going to create a subcategory that was based on something really real within the company. And they said, we're going to differentiate ourselves on customer service. And this is something that this is something that was real, that it worked, and it was important to people. And so I remember at the company a long time ago, our CEO, Landon Napier, said, hey, raise your hand if you've called Time Warner recently. And everybody raised their hand. And he said, leave your hand up if they actually answered the phone. And everybody just started laughing, because everybody has an experience with the really terrible customer service of big tech companies, where it's press 1 for this, press 2 for that, and they want to lose you. They don't actually want to talk to you, and it's very frustrating. And so we said, hey, we're going to be the company that answers the phone every single time. And we gave it a name, which was Fanatical Support. And Fanatical Support became the real extreme differentiation. And even the name Fanatical Support was very radical. You know, people were like, what does that mean? And we actually had a straitjacket award at the company for the person who was the most fanatical every quarter. They would put a straitjacket on you, and the whole company would come together at our open book, and they would celebrate the fanatical racker of the quarter. And it was a big deal, but it was a true differentiator. So we had our category, we had our specialization, but then what happened is a bunch of competitors started saying, hey, we do that too. And what happened is that we knew that this was the one we were extremely differentiated on. So now we had to do the next part, which was called the facts of the difference. And this is where you actually prove your superlative claim that you make. So I want to tell you a story about this guy right here. His name is James Brem. He used to have a company here at Rackspace. I'm sorry, at Geekdom. He was the guy who got me my job at Rackspace. Super good guy. One of the greatest sales dudes I've ever met. And he was one of the first, 10, 15, 20 sales reps at Rackspace. And I remember when I started, it was Christmas time, and he was on the phone with a customer, and he said, our differentiator is Fanatical Support. That's what we have. That's what makes us better than everyone. And the customer on the phone said, BS, everybody says they do that. And James very cleverly knew how to deploy the facts of the difference. And he said, Mr. Customer, I want you to call us on Christmas Eve at 2 a.m. And I want you to ask us the hardest question you can about Linux Apache servers. And so the customer called at 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve and immediately got routed to a level 3 Linux engineer, answered his question, and the next day he ordered like 20 servers from James. And this is when everything works correctly. You have your category, you're extremely differentiated, you're number one in it, and you can prove it with the facts of the difference. It's one of my favorite stories because it's true and it's not marketing mumbo jumbo. So the next one I want to talk to you about is the cloud. So this is really a great example of when Rackspace did it incorrectly. So when we swayed and we didn't use the rules of category marketing. And so what happened is that Amazon Web Services basically created the category of cloud. I mean, they came in with just massive budget, massive infrastructure, and just created this whole notion of public cloud. So when Rackspace tried to compete with them, we were just getting dominated by them. And I think that what happened is that we said we did cloud, which we did technically, but we did not do it as good as Amazon. And so one of the things that you need to be careful of, and this is a quote from Bill, is he said, nothing destroys your brand faster than making a false claim. And so we weren't making a false claim, but we were sort of saying we can do cloud as well as Amazon, but it wasn't true. They had all kinds of automation, and also they were actually in a different category. So what happened is Amazon said, hey, we're really for the engineers, the really smart technical people. And if you're not smart enough to be on the Amazon cloud, we sort of don't want you. Whereas Rackspace was always the place that did customer service. And so what happened is we were now in the public cloud category, and we had to recategorize ourselves. And so my mentor, Bill Schley and Graham Weston, got together in a room, and they said, what is the category that we can create to compete against Amazon? And they went back to the basics. They said, you know what? We manage servers for people. Why don't we manage their cloud as well? So they rebranded themselves as the #1 cloud company. And all of a sudden, boom, there was 2 categories created. There was the commodity cloud, the do-it-yourself cloud, which was Amazon. And then there was the, if you're not that technical and you're not a super genius, we can help you manage your cloud. And that is how Rackspace got back in the game early on when they were going head-to-head with cloud. So my favorite example of all time, for those that are not technical and don't know about servers, is online dating. And oh man, I love it because I think that it's actually where category marketing just comes to life. And so I'm going to show my age. Actually, first principle, Graham always says there's riches and niches. A lot of people get hung up on having a product that the entire world will buy. And I would just tell you that specific is terrific, riches and niches. The more niche centric you can get, the deeper the reach, the narrower the focus, the wider the reach that you will always get. And I think that this is something that I learned from so many customers at Rackspace, and I'm going to walk you through a couple of examples. So I'm really showing my age with these 2 examples. I mean, I don't even know if they're still in existence anymore, But when I was a young whippersnapper at Rackspace, eHarmony was the big one. And their number one claim, so they were in the category of online marketing, but their claim and their differentiator was we're the most scientific. I remember they had a commercial that said we have X number of scientists here, and they have this crazy survey that they've used their sciencey brains to come up with this question that matches you. And it was very sciencey. And Match.com said, we're the number one in dates, right? We'll get you a bunch of dates. And that's what everybody wanted, right? So everybody went there. And I really love this example. And I think that if I were to modernize it between something like Bumble and Tinder. So if you look at Bumble and Tinder, the technology is almost the same, right? Swipe left, swipe right. But I think that if you asked people the category that they're in, they would tell you that Tinder is for hooking up and Bumble is really for more serious people. And that is just what I've been told by people. So the category is split. The technology is the same. And I think that they own their respective categories. So I'm going to give you my greatest example. It's the one I love. And it was actually a customer of mine while I was at Rackspace. And so when I was at Rackspace, I had a customer that had an online dating company, and they really understood riches and niches. They understood their superlative claim. And it was very simple. I'm single and I own a horse, and I want to meet someone else who's single and owns a horse. EquestrianSingles.com. And what I love about their website was they know who they said no to, and they know who they said yes to. And they were absolutely unafraid to claim their niche. And if you look on this website, this is a picture of their old homepage. They said they have their superlative claim right there, the number one online equestrian community. I mean, that is category ownership if I've ever seen it. But also, let's look at this homepage, right? Look on the bottom here. There's a Bale Buddy hay feeder. Now, if you're a city slicker like me, I have no idea what the hell that is, but I guarantee you that their audience knows what that is. And so they have zeroed in their niche so well. And I will tell you that as their account manager, they were very, very, very successful. And they dominated their category. And I would say this was before Farmers Mingle and all this stuff. They really were a pioneer in category marketing in the online dating category. And I just think it's such a wonderful example of how you can own your niche when everyone thinks you have to go claim the whole world. I'm going to pause it for a second. Matt, do you have any questions or thoughts?
Yeah. So when trying to figure out what your category is, like what's the best route to define it? Do you like look deep into your product and where your product is differentiated? Do you look deep into your team and where your team's niche is differentiated? Is it like, yeah, like where's the best route to start looking at that category that you'll be designing basically?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that you're going to start in a couple of places. The first one is the problem that you're solving for your customer. You're also going to start with what is the master category. And then one of the ways that you can hone in is what are the other competitors out there doing? And I think that if you look at those three things, it'll help you zero in your category. And so when we get done and do our workshop, we're going to start with what's the master category, what's the problem that you're solving, and then we're going to zero on in to get your superlative claim.
Awesome.
Yeah, good question. So this is just a reminder, the macro category, right? What is the very top of it? What is the number one claim that you want to make? And you don't have to be number one, right? But you want to be able to say, look, we do this better than everybody else, right? So it doesn't have to just be the number one claim like they had it there. And I'll show you another example of that. Be ready with the facts of the difference. This is why I can prove that we can make such a bold claim. And then last but not least, always remember the goal, extreme differentiation. So here's two books that I recommend on it, Differentiate or Die by Jack Trout and my mentor's first book, Why Johnny Can't Brand. And it's really all about what is the unique idea that you're actually selling to your customer. So we're going to transition into microscripts. So let's dive in. What is a microscript? A microscript is how to tell your story in about a sentence or less. And what it does is it launches a story in your listener's mind. And I also would add to this that a good microscript is the salesperson that's there when you're not there. It just keeps selling. And one of the things that Bill Schleyer once told me is he said, it's not what people hear, it's what they repeat. The most repeatable microscripts are the ones that stay around the longest. And this is not to be confused with a tagline, although I would argue that most good taglines are microscripts. right? And so not all microscripts are taglines, which I'm about to show you. But the goal is, how can I give a little story to my listener, and specifically to the people I want to buy my product, and send it on down with them. So politicians are very, very good at microscripts. The Bridge to Nowhere, I don't know what that political fight was about, but it does launch a story in my head. My favorite one, though, was No Child Left Behind. I mean, I really don't know what that legislature was about, but I know I want to vote for it, right? I don't want to leave any child behind. I mean, they frame these microscripts so well that it evokes an emotion, and specifically a story in your head. And my favorite, and this Bill Slay talks about this in his book, The Microscript Rules, which I'll show you in a second, is this principle that no one remembers data. And Matt, I know that as a tech guy, the tech scene is real bad at bombarding people with data. I mean, we shoot people in the face with data. And what he talks about in the book is, in the O.J. Simpson trial, the prosecution gave like 9 months of evidence, 9 months. And so after the end of the 9 months of evidence, his O.J. Simpson's lawyer, John Cochran, gets up there, and he basically said, jury, you can try to remember 9 months of evidence, or you can remember one line. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. And he gave them the most famous microscript, I would argue, in modern times. And Bill Slay tells me that he was giving a speech once in like India, and he started the line and the whole audience finished it, right? But people remember that line. Bill would also say that people forget everything, but they will remember as many microscripts as you give them. We have the capacity to remember an infinite number of them, which I absolutely have come to believe. So I once hired a guy for a project I was doing at Geekdom when I was CEO, and we were trying to get more entrepreneurs from Mexico to come into our space. And in the interview, he told me 2 microscripts that I still remember. He said, San Antonio is the most northern city in Mexico, and he said San Antonio is the safest city in Mexico. And I remember going, those are really powerful microscripts, because just this one, the most northern city in Mexico, says that if you're from Mexico, you see this as part of your home, part of your culture, that it's actually not really the US. And that is a very, very powerful value proposition for that audience. So the goal is to not come up with a tagline. I think that the reason I put this in here is most people try to jump to the tagline, and I think it's wasted energy. I think that if you start first with your category and your microscript, you will inevitably be led to the tagline. But I would say that don't start with the tagline. You want to know what you are and why people need to buy what you have. So I also call it the long Latin. And this is really taking category and combining it with a microscript. So when I took over as CEO of Geekdom, I sort of had to do this exercise and say, well, what are we? I had a lot of people asking for office space, a lot of people wanting to sponsor. And so when I said, well, what do we do? The master category is co-working. The subcategory is collaborative. I remember I was in a co-working space in San Francisco that was so quiet that the act of pulling my laptop out of my bag made so much noise that I was embarrassed. And I was like, okay, we don't want it to be that kind of co-working space. I would rather get the complaint that it's too loud than it's too quiet. Collaborative. We want people talking. Subcategory. We exist for tech startups. Okay. And I'm actually missing one here. We are in San Antonio and specifically in downtown. I've been asked, hey, are you ever going to put a Geekdom up at Stone Oak? The answer is always absolutely not. Will you put a Geekdom in Mexico City? The answer is absolutely not. So we are the number one collaborative co-working space for tech startups. And actually, I should add a word here, in downtown San Antonio. Why is this important? The reason it's important is it helps you say yes to the right things and no to the wrong things. I have had people say, Lorenzo, I will pay you triple what you're charging for an office, but I want to be in there in the energy of Geekdom, and I have an accounting firm. And I would say to them, if you are not helping our startups or a startup yourself, I don't care about the 3 times rent. We are here for the tech companies. This is actually why we exist. So it helps me say no to the wrong things and yes to the right things. What are we and what do we do, right? And this is really more, Matt, for your team, right? When your team knows what you are, it helps them really guide the decisions that they make on there. Let me pause there for a second, see if you have any questions on that.
Yeah, the idea of having this multi-layered of who you are really driving, like drilling down, makes a lot of sense. And relating that back to microscripts, I know that from my own personal experience, like trying to build a tagline, they've always sucked. The best taglines I've had have come from me just speaking, like just in a conversation, coming up with a short phrase that came. But being able to,
sorry, go ahead.
No, but being able to then take like what you know about yourself, what you know about your company, and then drill that into, this is what we are, we do this at this level for these people. And that's just like, that's something that is just powerful.
So I love your comment. It actually was unprompted a great segue to this slide. So when I was before I joined Geekdom as CEO, and I was just working at 80/20, Nick Longo launched Geekdom out of the 11th floor of the Westin Center, and I was there on the first day. And I came up and I went to check it out, and I was like, this is so cool. And I remember that the microscript was a young woman from Trinity who said this sentence right here, the middle one: "Oh, it's like a gym membership for geeks." And this young woman literally off the elevator gave our entire company the microscript that we still use to this day. I either say it's a YMCA for entrepreneurs or a gym membership for geeks, but the gym membership for geeks is literally the one that launches the story that people go, "Oh, I get it," right? And it came from listening to our customers, or to what you were saying, when you're going throughout your day and you're actually telling the story and you're talking to real people, the authentic taglines a lot of times or microscripts emerge from those natural interactions. And I would say the majority of the time that I've observed, your customers or your employees are the ones that will actually come up with them. And so we created the phrase, the place where startups are born. And that was really this aspirational microscript of, we want this to be the epicenter of where startups are created here. And it was great. But when we tried to explain what we did, the gym membership for geeks was the most powerful microscript that we had. These are things to say. I remember I was reading a business journal article, and there was a company that we partner with, Epicenter here, that is an amazing company. And they said in the business journal article, we want to be the Geekdom for green or renewable energy. And man, that made me feel so proud, because they were using Geekdom as a microscript. And also, I will say this, and this is just paying homage to the great Nick Longo. When he came up with the word Geekdom, Geekdom is one of the most powerful one-word microscripts I've ever heard in my entire life, because it tells you so much in one word. When you think of Geekdom, you don't think of a place where the really aggressive sales guys are. You think of a place where the geeks are. It's their home turf, right? And if you're going in their home turf, you're expecting a certain level of things and behaviors that are different. And I really applaud him for coming up with that term, because he launched the story with just the name of the company. And that is really the ultimate highest level of doing this. Bill writes about, one of my other favorite examples is Die Hard Batteries. Die Hard Batteries is the microscript. It's everything in one word, right? Yeah. All right. So trial and error, not to beat this to death, but you really have to talk to a lot of people. You have to see what's resonating. You have to listen. And the key that I would say here is, what is the most repeatable phrase? And I'll give you a quick example. A long time ago, I wrote an article called City on the Rise for the Rivard Report. And it was a very popular article. And this phrase is a phrase that I didn't come up with. Graham came up with it and used it. And I noticed the first time he gave a speech on it, everyone started saying it. And so we sat down and we were like, how do we help brand San Antonio to attract people? And the microscript that I loved was actually called The City You Can Build. And I loved it because I was like, everyone gets to participate. So I started using it in speeches, and I realized that very quickly, no one ever said it again. No one ever repeated it back to me. So I dropped it, even though I technically thought it was more accurate than City on the Rise. But City on the Rise was the one that everyone would repeat as soon as you said it. And so I would say, when you're going through your company and you're experimenting with microscripts, the one that gets repeated the most is the one you got to gravitate to and double down on. All right. So this is Bill Schlay's book, The Microscript Rules. He actually has a second edition, which is updated, which is amazing. And so if you want to learn more about that, I highly recommend that you get that. So our last session, and then we'll go into the workshop for those that want to stick around, is telling your story. Now, again, a lot of literature written on storytelling, a lot of books out there. And so Lorenzo Gomez is not claiming to have invented anything new. we worked with a vendor once that gave me such great insight on this topic that I just wanted to share it. And so there is a company in California called Duarte. It's named after Nancy Duarte, the owner. And it's an incredible company. And you want to talk about category? They are the #1 storytellers in PowerPoint. That's their category. They tell stories into slide decks. And it's not cheap, but it's amazingly effective. She has a TED Talk called The Secret Structure of Great Talks. And she gives 2 of their most powerful tools in this TED Talk. And so Nancy Duarte goes through and she says, in every great speech, there is a from and a to. The from is the current state of the world. And normally the current state of the world is bad. The to is what she calls the new bliss, the world with my product, the world with my idea. And she goes, your audience, you want to move your audience from to. And so the exercise you have to do is to say, what does your audience think today? And what do you want them to think after they hear your pitch? So you want to move them into action, right? The from and the to. And in her TED Talk, she does an amazing job of dissecting Steve Jobs' unveiling of the iPhone and Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. And if you look at this slide, these up and down squiggly lines, she can tell you at every second of their speech if they're in the from or the to. She actually can map out where they're from. And so Steve Jobs says, look, phones are terrible today. They're this, they're that. And he says, imagine 10,000 songs in your pocket. I mean, what a new bliss, right? What a new world he just created. Martin Luther King is going through the list of problems, right, that black people have gone through. And then he says, I have a dream that my children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He goes from and to, and from and to. And this is what every great company should do. The world as it is and the world you want them to get to. So this is a very simple format that I've created. And this is the basis of all of the presentations that I give, especially if it's a pitch deck. And what we'll do, Matt, is we'll convert this into some simple slides, just words. The big idea, which a lot of times will be your microscript or your category, the from, the to, and then the story you're going to tell them to move them. The data comes after all of this, right? You don't start with the data. You start with where you're going to move your audience to. And so, so this is just, I'm going to walk you through now a brief presentation that I do, and I'm going to show you how I deploy this methodology. So when I first started giving public speeches, the #1 speech I gave was on the tech scene. And so I had to tell my audience, business as usual, we're going to create a tech scene. And I'm going to tell you a story about a company Rackspace bought to move you. And I want to pause and talk about the from here for a second. One of the things that I have found in the from is that your audience will judge you based on how honest you are in the from. And what I mean by that is when I talk about the tech scene in San Antonio, my audience is already very skeptical. And so if I don't call it out before them, I will lose credibility. And so the more honest, the more direct you can get with the BS, the more you will win credibility. And so I'm going to walk you now through a presentation where I actually go through this methodology real quick. One second. So this presentation is called the evolution of the startup ecosystem. And you're about to see the first 15 slides is big idea from to story. So this is my big idea in one slide. I'm here to talk to you about the startup scene. For you, it's probably, I'm here to tell you about Polis. I'm here to talk to you about my company, right? And then I go immediately right into the from. So the city you know. So I say, hey, I'm here to talk to you about the San Antonio tech scene. But before I do, we got to talk about the brand of San Antonio. The brand of San Antonio is not good. From. So if you tell your friends you're going on a plane to visit San Antonio, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, the Alamo. And when you go and you walk up to the Alamo, the first thing you're going to think is, I thought it would be bigger than that. And everybody always laughs. I'm hitting them with the from. Okay? The second thing is, it's a family town only. If you're a graduating senior in Austin at UT, you are not telling your friends, I can't wait to graduate, pack up all my stuff, and move to San Antonio where all the young, sexy, single people are. That is not our brand. Our brand is a family town, and that's bad. We have to fix that. From. I'm hitting them with the from. The next thing you're going to think about San Antonio is the Riverwalk. And I'm here to tell you, people, that no local is at this part of the Riverwalk unless my Aunt Mildred is visiting from Missouri and I have to take her for an overpriced margarita. There are parts of the Riverwalk where locals go, but this is not one of them. But this is what gets shown at the halftime show at the NBA Finals, right? Last but not least, if you're from Mexico, we are shopping at La Cantera. I was literally in a taxi in Mexico City, and I told the guy I was from San Antonio, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "Oh, La Cantera." And I was like, "You got to be kidding me. Like that can't be what we're famous for." And so I want to move you from this brand to a new brand. I want to show you that there are more things for young single people to do, and there's more coming online every day. That there is an up and coming tech scene of which Geekdom is at the epicenter of. That if you're not ready for the family life, if you're not ready for the 3-2 house, that there are urban options for you to come down and live in if you're not ready for that part of you. But I have to tell you a story about it, right? So the story is about a company that in about 2009, Rackspace bought a company out of Virginia, and the 3 founders were required to move to San Antonio. And one of them was absolutely not having it. And after a lot of negotiating, he sent our owner, Graham, this email that said, "Graham, I know you're upset about me not moving to San Antonio, but there's no urban core, there's no startup scene, there's no place for me to walk my dog. I'm never going to move to San Antonio. Please don't call me about it anymore. I'm moving to Austin instead." And this was the great pain that we struggled with. So what did I do? So Graham said, "I'm going to launch 3 companies to help make sure that this never happens again." Now I'm going to stop there. And the rest of my presentation is data, 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 data. The data comes after the story. Why are you here, and what am I going to move you to? All right. So, Matt, let me just pause there for a second. Any questions we have before we go to our category design? Make sure I covered everything.
Yeah, no specific questions. That was honestly a great presentation. Some of it has information that I've heard and seen in books and random places here and there, but all putting it together is it was amazing. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. So what we're going to do now is I want to run you through category design, just a quick exercise for you and your company. And then I would say that anybody watching this workshop, I would encourage you to follow along. And I'm going to get my notebook so I can take some notes here. And then after this, we're going to do a brief storytelling sort of wireframe so that you can use it for a pitch deck if you want. So now that you've had the crash course in category design, when I looked at your Instagram account, I think you did a good job of a couple things. The first thing you told me in your Instagram is you're a mobile application. And so I would say that would it be correct? Actually, before I go into this question, do you want to take a stab at it first, or do you want to go step by step with me? I'll take a stab at it. I've been thinking about it throughout this presentation. So like you said, a mobile application, or maybe even a little stretching the vision is to a mobile platform. Okay.
That is a navigation platform specifically for walking, that uses Bluetooth beacons to create a network on the Riverwalk. And that's currently our little spiel. We're that navigation platform that's specifically for walking, that's specifically using Bluetooth beacons, that's specifically on the Riverwalk.
Okay. And so I'm gonna go really quick and deviate from something that Bill Schley taught me called the 3 W's. What is it? Which you've just told me. Why do I need it, and why should I buy it from you? So let's talk about the second W. Why do I need this navigation Bluetooth enabled network?
Yeah. So the problem that we're hoping to solve is the fact that tourists and residents alike don't really have a great way to navigate the Riverwalk, navigate that subterranean level, navigate one of the most beautiful places in our city. They, like for instance, I was driving to a meeting on Wednesday actually, and as I was driving, there was a tourist with a paper map standing above a Riverwalk entrance. Like the fact that people are relying on paper and a map that's given to them by their hotel to then traverse this very long, elaborate maze-like area of San Antonio that gets millions of like foot traffic people a year is just astounding. So the fact that there's no solution for that, just like that's the problem that we're looking to solve. That these people, they get lost, they don't know where they're going, they try to find the best margarita on the Riverwalk, but they end up finding just a random barbecue place because they just don't know where they're going. So being able to help that pain point is why we're a company, being able to help that community and build a community, starting with the Riverwalk.
So is this an application? So I'm on my phone and I pull up the Polis, application, and it starts directing me and counseling me and guiding me as I'm on the river. Is that the user experience?
Yeah, the user experience is you download the Polis app and it'll help you, using just traditional GPS, get to where the Riverwalk entrance is. And then once you enter into that Riverwalk entrance, you then enter into the Bluetooth beacon network that provides that navigation when there is no GPS. And you'll type in an area that you want to go, like let's say I want to go to Rita's on the Riverwalk. But as you're walking to Rita's, you will get geo-specific advertisements that are tailored towards you that allow for you to unlock the hidden value of the Riverwalk. So Rita's, it's your go-to, you're going to Rita's, that's where you take your aunt every time you come. And then suddenly you get an advertisement for Iron Cactus and you're like, wow, this is something I've never seen. Let's go try it out. And
so would you say, what about if I don't know any of the names of the location of the businesses? What if I just know the category? I want music. I want barbecue. Can you reverse it by category?
Yeah, so there'll be a tab where it'll be like a discover. So you'll be discovering what's there. And a lot of what will be there also is like discounts and stuff. So you can see what places offer discounts and navigate specifically to that place. You can see what place has deals. You can see what place has live music, stuff like that. And so it can help you like find and unlock what you want to do.
And just for my own curiosity, so are you deploying hardware at different points of the Riverwalk, or how is this platform created? Is it just a database?
Yeah. And so basically the beacons are small. They're a couple inches long, couple inches wide, fit perfectly in your hand, and they can stick onto any surface or be drilled into a tree or whatnot. And they'll be placed every so often, every 10 to 20 feet, and it will give you that seamless experience as you're navigating. And then likewise, there'll be beacons outside of businesses that'll prompt and show that like that advertisement or that unlocking ability for restaurants and bars and entertainment.
So okay, so let's take a stab at the category right now, and so it is and I wanted to go to y'all's Instagram. Actually, I'm just going to go to it on my phone. So because you had all the big the category words in there, and so I want us to try to attempt together to have. Let's see here. All right, mobile application utilizes Bluetooth, low energy beacons for increased navigation and user experience. Okay, so I think would you say that the macro category this is a mobile application, and you said platform, but I think let's just make it simple on our users and say right now we're just going to say it's a mobile application. So that is the master category, and if we're going back to this slide, that's your co-working, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a mobile app, right? And it's specifically for navigation, okay? And I would say so it's mobile, maybe even Bluetooth. I'm not sure that people need to. Well, actually, they do need to know that because they need to have a phone that's Bluetooth enabled, so that's important to them, right? It's a navigation specific, and then right now it sounds like your entire company is geographically committed to the San Antonio Riverwalk.
Yes.
Okay. So then I would say, so it is navigation, discover, San Antonio Riverwalk. So I'm just going to take a stab at this. So basically it's Polis is the, and just forgive me for being dramatic here. It's the number one mobile application. It's a Bluetooth, it's the number one Bluetooth navigation tool. Sorry. The number one mobile Bluetooth navigation tool to help people discover what they want on the San Antonio Riverwalk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I would write that down as the long Latin. This is actually what we do. And then I would say if New York City came and they said, man, we need you to do what you did to the Riverwalk here, then you say, okay, well, instead of San Antonio, the rest of my category still works. I'm still the number one mobile Bluetooth navigation tool to help you discover, and then insert new city and new micro geography in there, right? Yeah. But it's really about discovering. I added the word discover in there because you want people to pick their preferences, and you're going to have things that guide them, but you really want them to decide on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially one of the things in our current times and current situation with the pandemic and everybody being indoors and trapped at home for this extended period of time that we've been, is to not only discover but also rediscover where they work and play, like rediscover that area in a new light, in a new way, as there's new businesses opening and old businesses shutting, that you can then start to just rediscover where you live and discover it in essence.
Sorry, I'm going to write down your category before I and then I would just say,
Now, one thing as I'm looking at all this, one thing that I see that's kind of missing is the fact that we are a walking map app for people. Like it's specifically walking. It's not necessarily navigation in the sense of, oh, you can drive to these different places. It's specifically feet on the ground.
Okay. No, that's great. So I would say, you're a pedestrian navigation tool.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. So you said, look, it's not for your car, right? We don't this is a walking app. I think that's really important. Now you could say walking. I mean, people probably know that better, but I'm just, by the way, forgive my misspelling.
Oh yeah. I didn't even notice. Don't worry.
So I would say that that's fine to put that in there. You might, but I think that the goal of this is that when you're telling your family at Thanksgiving, you want to break it down so everybody knows what you're doing. And actually, I love this example because there's going to be someone that comes to you. So Uber is going to say, hey man, can we advertise? And you go, well, actually, we're not really a fit because we're a pedestrian app and you're a car, right? You're a car ride sharing. So helps me say no to the wrong things, right to the. All right. So this is my long Latin for your category. Okay. And I would say, I'm going to send this to you, tweak it, whatever, but this is really for you, for your team to understand. And the goal of this is not for marketing campaigns. This is, hey, is this really what we do? Is this what we're going to focus all of our time on? Do we want to double down on one part of this? Do we want to, now can we say yes to all of this and no to these other things that we're getting asked? It's really to help you and your team sort of navigate. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now, so I'm going to put this, and I'm just going to do it all in one slide. So now let's go to your storytelling pitch deck. So we have your category down. So I'm going to say, for lack of a better term, this is the big idea is I'm here to tell you about Polis. Or I could say something fancy like the new way to discover the Riverwalk. Okay, but it's a sentence or less. I'm here to tell you what it is. Would you disagree with either of those two, or would you change them?
No, I mean, the new way to discover the Riverwalk. Yeah, I mean, Polis, we are Polis, and we are a new way to discover the Riverwalk.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I would say keep it simple. So now we're going to do so the left is what does your audience think today, and what do you want them to think when you're leaving? Because I've literally only looked at your company one time, and I've been listening to what you're saying. Will you allow me to try to take a stab at it?
Yes.
And so the current state of the Riverwalk is it's easy to get lost. It's hard to find the entrance, which is something you said. Impossible to discover what you want. Are those accurate?
Yeah, I'd say so. Those are pretty accurate.
Now I'm trying to work in the paper map that you showed me about. So I would say would you also say there's not a centralized directory?
Yeah, no centralized directory. No. What's a good way to say it? No, there's no way to navigate besides memory or asking central employees.
You have to know someone local. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm moving this. So the world with Polis, though, oh, what a beautiful world that is. It's a world where you don't have to know anyone local. You can easily find the entrance, the exits, and all the places you want to discover.
Yeah.
All it requires is one little app. All right. I think that if you're talking to a tourist, the from is going to be very easy for them to agree with. So then I would say, let's see here. Let's go to the story. So in my story, it was a company Rackspace tried to buy that they didn't want to move here. So you have your big idea, you're from two. Now, what is the story? And if you, so this, and just a little recommendation, it can either be a story that someone who's used your platform that just, it hit all the right buttons, or I think it could be why you're creating this company and the pain that led you to it. Those are, but if you have another story, it's better, but those are the two that I recommend you go with one of them.
Yeah, so I can give a little story and background into why Polis is a thing.
Yeah.
So back in 2018, my senior year of college, Colby and I were taking an entrepreneurship class with Dr. Martinez. It was a 1 credit hour class. It was just, we're seniors trying to get those extra credits. But it was something that interested me, something that I'd found a passion for the summer before. And in that class, probably the third class, Joyce Dooley came with some representatives from the city to pitch us CivTech and some of the CivTech challenges. And one of those challenges was navigation on the Riverwalk. And me and Colby instantly knew that that was something we wanted to work on outside of the classroom and in a professional setting. Like we were both in there, joshing each other saying, hey, like I got an idea for this. It's like, well, I have an idea for this. It's like, let's talk after class. And that's where the idea for Polis came about. We knew that we could use technology to solve this issue. And that's when we went to Geekdom. And we started talking to different people in the community space. We talked to Codal, Colin Beck, we talked to City Flag, and kind of got an idea of what we needed to do and how we needed to do it. And this was 2 weeks into the idea of Polis. From there, we discovered that Bluetooth beacons were the way to go, and that if we were able to accomplish it, we would be able to make an impact on the community. And that's where it really excited me, because I've always been a big community guy and building the community. The San Antonio community, though I wasn't born and raised in San Antonio, my sister was born in San Antonio, and my parents met in San Antonio, which actually makes San Antonio one of my favorite cities in the United States, because that's why I'm here today. And so being able to make an impact on that community with this new idea that the city kind of gave to us was really something that we wanted to work on. Fast forward about 6 months or 8 months from there, we met Andre. And Andre, who is our software engineer, a software developer, he was working on the exact same idea using Bluetooth beacons for navigation, but over in Boston. So he had a passion for it. He came to San Antonio via VFA, working for Go Smart Solar, and he came and stopped by my desk at Geekdom and was like, "Hey, I was working on this idea. I heard you were working on this idea." I was like, "We were working on this idea." And it was just that instant collaboration, that instant excitement. And we were like, let's join forces. Let's build something together. Let's build something that can be impactful to the community and hopefully grow beyond. So.
Dude, I love it. Hang on one second. I'm going to clean up here a little bit. So, okay. So I would say that this is you have the wireframe that you need, right? And so you and your team basically say, what is the big idea we want? Is it these two? Is it something else? Very simple. This is probably between 5 to 10 slides in your deck, right? It's easy to get lost. I mean, there's some, I can imagine some powerful visuals, someone on a map, a shot, because actually the city does a good job of marking the Riverwalk, but they actually blend in. So they're not very overt. And so there's some slides where you frame the problem, and then you can frame, this is what it's going to do. And then let me tell you our story, right? This is a bunch of whatever slides that you want. And then I would just say that only after do you do that, I would say the data and the facts of the difference. This is where that goes. When you go into the Bluetooth beacon technology, you don't do it anywhere in the front end, you do it here, right? After I know why I'm here to talk about Polis, do you give me the nitty gritty of that stuff? But this is it. This is what we're solving from to. Man, my audience is out there. They're lost. They're waiting to buy it. I can't wait to give them the solution. Let me tell you why I'm doing it. It's very personal. It's collaborative. It's the San Antonio way. We've done it. And now let me show you why it's dope and awesome and works. Boom. And I just put this in there because I'm lazy, but this is the framework that I would start in order to do your pitch deck. Thoughts, questions, concerns, craziness? Is it crap? Give me your thoughts.
No, this slide specifically, the from to slide, puts it in a perspective that I've never thought of it before. Like what our pitch deck before, which most people haven't seen, is it's a problem solution. But this is basically storytelling the problem and the solution, which is much more valuable and much more impactful when trying to build a category. Like you define what the problem is based off of a story, and you define what the solution is based off of a story. And yeah, that's something that I'd never really seen before or put together. Maybe I've done it like just without knowing, but yeah, that's good advice.
One of the things that I love about this is what you want is if you're pitching the concierge at Hotel Emma or at the Valencia, you want them during your from to hit one of those pain points and for them to have an emotional and go, yes, that is, oh my God, I can't even tell you how many times a guest comes up to me and says, I can't, you want them to get angry and go, yes, I have that problem and it pisses me off. And you go, well, today's your lucky day. Today I can solve all of your problems, right? For the low, low price of $8 million for this app, you too can give your guests the relief that they need. And the reason the From To is powerful is because if you hit them with real pain, the pain that they're already experiencing, your credibility goes through the roof and they say, look, give me your solution. I need it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, any other questions? Noodle, if there's no questions, then I'm going to turn it over to John to see and just to ping me if there are any questions from the audience listening. But if not, I'm going to send you this and you can get with your team and beat it up and change it and do whatever you need to do with it. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. All right. All right, Matt, any questions? Any other comments?
No, I think this has been very insightful for me. Thank you so much for having me on. And this has been just great.
Man, I'm super happy. It's actually really fascinating. I'm getting from my boy John that we don't have, let's see here. We don't have any questions from the audience, which is really great. That means that they're not going to beat me up too much. So I'm going to send you the presentation. I'm going to send you this sort of wireframe that we have. And if you have any questions on it, just feel free to ping me on it. But I think that it sounds really awesome. And I think it is solving a real problem. So I'm really excited to see if these tools can help you guys get it into the right hands of investors, customers, beta users, whatever it is that you need. And then hopefully you'll report back to us.
Yeah, no, sounds good.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, take it easy. Everybody that joined us on Zoom, thank you so much for participating. We really appreciate it. And I hope that these tools were helpful to you in whatever your endeavors are. And just know that I didn't come up with them. I've just basically plagiarized them from all the smartest people I've met.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, guys.